Good Tuesday morning, everyone. Welcome to the Volquest.com podcast presented by our good friends at Blue Water Climate Control. Glad to have you along with us on this Tuesday. Remember now, the mini split special ends on February the 14th. So if you're into that or you're looking for that single zone mini split unit that's perfect for a small space, such as a shop or a in-law suite or bonus room or covered garage, whatever you got, you be sure and take advantage of this special because it's an opportunity you're not going to have in the spring or the summer. It's a great little unit that'll make any room comfortable for you, whether it's heating it or cooling it. They got financing options available for qualified buyers. So give them a call today, 865-299-2290 for details, or you can go to bluewaterclimatecontrol.com to book your free estimate. Remember, this special ends on Valentine's Day, February the 14th. With Austin Price and Rob Lewis and Brent Hubbs, plenty to get to in this edition of the Blue Water Climate Control podcast. And it starts first and foremost, Austin, with where's Tennessee's coaching staff? Where is Josh Heupel and assembling a coaching staff? Do we get defensive coordinator news on this Tuesday?
I do think we know who Tennessee's hiring as their defensive coordinator today. I do. I think that, I just think it comes out, and it probably comes out from the Ohio State side of things. Tennessee's sure not going to leak it out there. So, that would make sense to me.
So you're thinking that it's going to be Washington unless he, barring some crazy change, decides to stay.
Yeah, I do. I think Tennessee is up the ante. I think financially they're going to get it done. Now, does that mean it's done? No. I mean, I think he could decide to stay. I mean, you have to understand Ohio State's got a lot coming back. They have to replace Justin Fields, but other than that, they've got a ton of talent back on that team that made the playoffs this year, and talent on defense, and Tennessee right now is not the sexy job. I mean, somebody's going to take it. They're going to get somebody, and I think Washington is probably still the guy. But it's like, why do some of these coaches at these high end, or very successful high school programs, why do they never leave? Because it's much easier just to be that assistant and continue to win. He doesn't seem like that though to me though. He's kind of been I won't say journeyman because that's not right, but he's been in different places. And while he is from Ohio, he did not play at Ohio State. He played at Boston College. So I think it's a little easier to walk away than from a place that's not your alma mater.
Rob, do you think that it's for coaches that there's some guys who make moves all the time. We know that. But do you think in this day and age that it's harder to get a coach to make a move, an assistant coach to make a move in some cases because the money's so good? Or is it a case where just some coaches out there are just being more selective than we used to see coaches be? I mean, you feel like the coaching, the revolving door of assistant coaches, is it what it used to be 10 years ago? I guess is what I'm asking.
I think it's program specific. I mean, I think when you're in a good spot, stable, where you're winning big, then I think it's not just as simple as, climbing the ladder like it used to be. And I think the money's a big part of it. I mean, certainly you can make more money as a coordinator, than you can as a position coach, but still you can make, $600,000, $800,000 as a position coach, which is a different animal than it was. And I think that just with the volatility that's in this profession, I think when you're in a good spot where the money's good, like Ohio State, that's stable. I mean, that head coach isn't going anywhere. Same thing at Clemson. I mean, they're keeping their coordinators. They're not just looking for the next big thing. They are being selective, but I don't think that's all across college football. I think that's at some of the, cream of the crop jobs.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I mean, there's certainly some places, so I hadn't thought of it really in that way, but it does feel like it's program specific. And then you have some cases where if you're a position coach and you have aspirations of being a coordinator, and you're at one of those schools that just doesn't have high turnover, do you think you're never going to get the opportunity there?
Yeah, like Clemson. If you're like a defensive assistant at Clemson, I mean, like, you're probably not getting that gig.
Yeah, I mean, Brent doesn't appear to be going anywhere. I mean, And so you have some cases like that as well. So,
and I think what you said about the money is a big deal. Tennessee had an offensive line coach making $800,000 last year. I mean, if you're making that kind of money as a position coach, how big of a difference is it to make $1 million or 1.1 million as a coordinator? I mean, it's not the same as, even 10 years ago when you had position coaches making $200,000 and $300,000. I mean, that guy's going to jump to make, $800,000-$900,000, but it's just not the difference is not as dramatic anymore.
Well, and I think some coaches, and not every coach, but I think some coaches are worried about just making a bad misstep, taking a bad job, because how much does it derail their path to their ultimate goal? If that's to be a head coach, or to be a coordinator in the NFL, or whatever their path may be. I mean, you take a misstep there, it could set you back in that career goal for a long period of time. And so how attractive is Tennessee right now, which kind of is what Austin was talking about.
And look, no better example than Kevin Steele. I mean, he killed his head coaching career by just jumping at a job that was available because he wanted to be a head coach so bad. I mean, anytime his name has come up in the decade since, his record at Baylor immediately gets thrown up, even though that was a terrible job.
Yeah, routine. And I'm sure you guys will agree with this. If he had not taken the Baylor job, he likely ends up with a much better job several years later, and probably has a much greater chance of success and much more of a greater chance of sustainability as a head coach. And so to Rob's point, you take the wrong thing and it can really derail you. And I hear that from high school coaches, I hear from college coaches. I don't think they would just take anything. Like, I had a lot of conversations with Derek Ansley when he was here. He wants to be a head coach, but he wouldn't just take anything, because he knows that, you may only get one chance, Yeah.
And again, I think when you factor in the money, then that changes things. That's why, in the basketball front, Rob, mid-major guys don't jump like they once used to. It used to be if you had a mid-major job, and a high major called you were taking that high major job because the money difference was so great at that point. But in basketball, the mid-major jobs are paying so much more money now that it's not an automatic that a guy takes a Power 5 job. He's going to be more selective. And I think you have that in the college football instance, whether you're talking about taking a coordinator, taking a head coaching job, or a head coach making a move, or a position coach taking, even a coordinator job. I just think people are more selective than ever before.
Yeah, I think the volatility is the reason why. I mean, everybody knows you go somewhere, you're not getting 5 years.
Yeah, you're
to turn it around anymore. I mean, you're getting more if you're lucky, and if you're showing progress.
Yep, you're exactly right. So if Tennessee goes and it is they get home, if you will, Austin, with Washington, and looking at some ties there, and you mentioned this in the chat on Monday night, he and Washington and Willie Martinez were together at Cincinnati. That would make some sense because of Heupel's comfort level with Willie Martinez. Willie Martinez's experience in the SEC and experience as a coach to help a young coach marry the back end and the front end together. I mean, we talked about that when Washington's name surfaced over the weekend. It just would make sense. I'm not saying it's a done deal, but am I missing something there? Because that one seems pretty logical to me, or it seemed to make a lot of sense.
You start connecting the dots, and that one connects pretty easily. And then from both sides, from both Coach Heupel, who he was just with and was with at Oklahoma once upon a time, and then was with Coach Washington at Cincinnati for a year. The one thing I know about Willie Martinez is he plays well with others. And I said that in the chat. And, not every coach plays well with others, but Coach Martinez does. And he is well respected out there in the coaching community. So that one just makes some sense. One guy that Coach Martinez, played with and played well with, or didn't play with in college, but played well with as an assistant coach, would be, Rodney Garner, Brent, who, I think continues to make the most logical sense just because of his SEC ties and everything he can give you, whether it just be, just validating the staff, seeing a guy like Rodney Garner on it, giving you that reputation as a recruiter and as a position coach. To me, that one just makes the most sense out of any of them.
And if it's him and Martinez, you suddenly have a defensive staff with a lot of SEC experiences and ties in places where Tennessee has to go get players.
Yeah, no doubt with the Georgia ties there. And you've got two veteran guys who could help a young coordinator grow.
Yeah.
I mean, because here's the thing. Here's the thing about Rodney Garner. Rodney Garner's done this job. I mean, he's been in college football for 3 decades. And I don't think Rodney Garner has ever, or he doesn't have aspirations to be a defensive coordinator or a head coach. You know, I mean, I think he likes to recruit. I think he likes to coach position groups, and I think he's very comfortable with that. I don't think Willie Martinez at this point in his career, Rob, is looking to be, you know, a DC somewhere. He's done that. I mean, I think he's kind of comfortable where he is in his career. So you could have someone, those two guys could help a Washington if it's him, and there's not this looking over your shoulder. Is this guy, is this guy cutting me? Is this guy doing something to me? I mean, it would seem like it would make some sense and could potentially work that way because of the way the dots connect.
Yeah, I mean, Tennessee fans probably aren't all fired up about Willie Martinez talk, but I mean, I thought he did a good job here. I mean, he's covered with a little Butch Jones slime, but his career is, goes way beyond that. And he, in dealing with him here, just being around him when he was here, he would definitely give you a grown-up in the room, a voice that would be respected.
Justin Coleman, Emmanuel Mosley, Cam Sutton. Three pretty good guys that are making money.
Three stars or below.
Yeah, that are making money in the National Football League that Willie Martinez was a part of recruiting and a part of coaching and developing while he was here. So, I mean, that guy's got a lot of experience, in his time as a coach. So we'll see. Those are certainly, 3 possibilities there. You connect the dots. Nobody, Austin, not guaranteeing or predicting anything because anything could happen in this deal.
Well, if let's just play hypotheticals here. If that was who you hired on defense, I would think, because I think that Washington would coach linebackers as well. Do you kind of split it and hire an outside linebackers coach? If you did that, then the coach that was with Josh Heupel at UCF, who was a special teams coordinator, Toth, I believe is how you pronounce it. That would make some sense because he's got some history of coaching some linebackers and being a special teams guy. That would leave you 2 spots left. One would be the running backs, and then but potentially maybe going to the safeties. If Willie's coaching corners, maybe they hire a safeties coach.
Or Willie could coach safeties, and you could hire a corners coach. You could go
either one. Yeah. So it just gives you some flexibility because I mean I think the offensive staff outside the running backs coach is set.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way. I mean, with Cody Burns and with Ellerby and with is it Goslich? Is that how you pronounce it? Golish. Okay. And then obviously the quarterback's coach as well. Again, not saying any. I mean, nothing is done on the defensive side of the ball, but we'll see what happens today and tomorrow if anything can get done with that. And those are some of the names and why I wanted to have this discussion because I wanted to explain to everybody kind of why those names were being tossed about because there's some dots that naturally connect there with some relationships that people have if that's where Tennessee ends up on the defensive coordinator spot with Washington there. And we'll see. I mean, it certainly Monday afternoon, Austin, it was trending the opposite direction. Didn't feel like it was going to happen. And then Tennessee circles back around. So we'll see if they can get home and get that done from that standpoint. As for the current team, and I'll say this for Coach Heupel, and I'm not saying this just because there's been videos out there of dodgeball games or whatever. I think that he has certainly made a very conscious effort to try to do some interactive things with players, Rob, besides just having team meetings, besides putting everybody in a chair in a meeting room, socially distanced, and you're having a speech to them, if you will. I mean, they did the Super Bowl deal where they watched it in the stadium. He's been at workouts. They have played the dodgeball thing. I mean, he's taken the message of kind of connecting with each other beyond just standing in front of them in a meeting room and talking. And I think that's something that's resonated pretty early and pretty quickly with this team. Doesn't mean it's all perfect. Everybody's all happy and holding hands and singing Kumbaya and nobody's looking to leave or anything like that. I'm not saying any of that, but I do think it's been something that's been welcomed by this team. And I think that's been a smart move by Coach Heupel since he arrived at Tennessee.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I'm not in the building, so I don't know what's going on. But I mean, seeing, where Jeremy came from, how he grew up in the coaching profession. I mean, why would you not try to emulate Nick Saban and be a teacher, be a stern professor, have meetings and all that kind of thing. But I think Heupel has a different style. I mean, it feels like early. I mean, we're going to find out more, obviously, as we go along. But, I mean, I think that kind of stuff is important. I'm not one of these people that's making fun of the dodgeball video. I think it's cool that, he's being creative and trying to build bridges with a roster that just has no connection to him. I mean, I think that's crucial. I think you can do that. I think it's a lot easier to do that with some fun and game stuff than it is standing in front of a meeting room with 125 kids, in a theater style seating situation.
If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball.
It's easier to do too, because the situation with COVID is getting better, whereas you did not have the opportunity over the course of the summer to interact. So, I mean, it's Jeremy Pruitt and his staff didn't have the opportunity to do that stuff.
And I think too, when back, not to there's no really, it's not a defense of the last staff, because I mean, like, I don't think that they did anything wrong. I think that, like, back then, keeping them separated was, what was everybody was told to do. But now that they went through a whole season together and they're around each other constantly and they're all getting tested again. And I mean, like, why would you not just try to, to live? I mean, if you can go and work out in the weight room with each other, why not be able to play dodgeball with one another? And to a man, I've talked to too many people over there that talked about, how kind of, crappy and just no camaraderie and chemistry they had last year because of the fact that everybody just kind of retreated to their rooms after workouts or after, after games or practices. So, I think this is a smart move to get them together as much as he can. And it's a good, hey, get to know us, for Coach Heupel, for Coach Halsley, for Coach Golish, Ellerby, and Cody Burns, the ones that are currently in the building over there.
Now, the defensive guys want to know who they got, and I think that's why getting the defensive side of the ball, or at least most of the defensive side of the ball, done in the next 48 hours, if they can, is imperative and is important, because I think these defensive guys they're ready to find an answer to their question of, hey, who's going to be my coach? What style are we going to play? What are we going to do? This, that, and the other. So I do think that is important, certainly moving forward for this coaching staff and for Josh Heupel to get done as quick as they can. Let's hop to recruiting right quick. I know it's pretty slow out there, Austin, but there has been plenty of attempts in state, right, to talk to guys. Certainly Ty Simpson. Any chance he delays his decision, or do you think he's still on track to do what he was going to do?
I think that he's on track. I'm not going to say that it's 100% a go, but I do think that that's probably 90. And again, I don't think he's closed the door on Tennessee at all. Ty is very calculated in what he does. So I think but I think he also knows how to read the room. I think his parents know how to read the room. I would be shocked if they're retweeting pro-Tennessee tweets like Ty did on Sunday and Tennessee didn't have a shot. I think this kid is very, very torn still. I think he goes back and forth. And, I think that, any of the three, Alabama, Clemson, and Tennessee, make sense in his head. And then also there's reservations in his head. So I continue to go back, and I've said this on the board. And I just think this is a head versus heart thing. I think the head tells Ty Simpson Tennessee makes no sense at all, and the other two make total sense. But the heart, wants what the heart wants. And I think that the heart's always wanted Tennessee, which is why he's been here the most out of any of the other schools, which is why through the coaching change and everything else, he may have been affected by it, but, he continues to come back around to Tennessee as being a viable option for him. So we'll see. But, credit Josh Heupel for coming in and making Ty a priority and literally, hitting that kid up every day. And he's talking to the family, he's talking to Ty, and he's doing everything possible to give Tennessee a chance on the 19th. And we'll see. I don't think, never said that kid's for sure coming here. But I do know that he loves Tennessee and Knoxville a ton. So, I think that, he's trying to give Tennessee every benefit of the doubt till the end.
Elsewhere in recruiting, Addison Nichols story we'll have up a little bit later today. Tennessee's trying to make some inroads there. That's a guy that's got some Tennessee ties. That's probably a pretty good decision by Tennessee to reach out to that one early in this process. And we talked about this a little bit in the Mailbag podcast. Part of this has just been getting organized in recruiting because the recruiting office was gutted. And there was a lot of who, what,
who have we offered, who have we not offered, all that.
Who has a tie, who doesn't have a tie.
Yeah, and then there is Ty. But yeah, for Addison Nichols, that kid's been, long leaning to Tennessee. Told me on Monday night, he probably slowed down his process a little more than he, had envisioned because of COVID and coaching changes and stuff. But, Tennessee's still very much in the mix there. He's, had multiple phone conversations with Glenn Ellerby, Tennessee's offensive line coach. He's talked to Coach Golish, and he talked to Coach Heupel that on Super Bowl Sunday. So I think Tennessee is very much in play there still. I just think that he's probably slowed the pacing of his recruitment just a little bit, just to kind of, continue to build relationships and see where things go.
And Tennessee will continue to reach out throughout the state of Tennessee on those 22s, and that will obviously be a priority. You'll see Tennessee a lot more active, I think, Austin, once the staff is in place, hopefully later this week. I think you'll see Tennessee a lot more talk about Tennessee on social media and everything else once it's a full go type deal. Because
I agree.
I think Tennessee will hit it pretty quick and pretty hard.
Yeah, I mean, they've been very reserved in how they've recruited. Like, they've not been full bore. Again, they've got only a staff of a few, and then some of those guys have, not been able to recruit yet, for whatever reason. So, I do think that once the staff is fully intact and announced, then yes, it will be more of a go on the recruiting trail.
Yep, got to get everybody signed and get everything all squared away and all that kind of stuff, which is obviously something that Tennessee hopes to have done this week. All right, let's talk a little Tennessee basketball here on this Tuesday podcast. Rick Barnes says he's wanted to play fast all year long. He's wanted guys to take it to the hole all year long. His two freshmen did that at Kentucky, Rob Lewis. I asked this question after the Kansas game, and you gave me a wait and see answer, which was accurate. Do we see a different Tennessee offense the rest of the way here? Are we seeing an evolution of the offense after what we saw against Kentucky?
I mean, I would think it was a no-brainer, but I asked Rick essentially that very question today to kick off his press conference, and he was like, no. I mean, we're not, I'm not that, he doesn't want Keon and Jaden to do that, to play that way every game, but it's not like he's going to hit pause and, throw out the playbook and completely start playing a different way. I think you'll definitely see them emphasize, see them try to, create more opportunities for them. But I just don't see how you leave that game Saturday and not think, man, these kids need to get 30 shots combined every game. I mean, they had 33 of Tennessee's 68 field goal attempts. And it was, the most fun watching a Tennessee game I would imagine fans had all season long, the way they played.
Well, they combined for 50 points and made one three-pointer, which is one of the more crazier stats than you'll see. When you have two guys combined for that, you typically think somebody's, made 4 or 5 threes or something like that. But they combined for 50 points. I'm not saying you, and I don't think you are either, nobody's suggesting to Rick Barnes that you abandon, the post and all of a sudden you're playing isolation game with those two and you're turning it into one-on-one, hooping or whatever. But I just think that this team, to be effective offensively, is beyond the notion of the ball's got to go through Fulkerson in the half court.
Yeah, but I don't know how you watch that Saturday night and come away with that conclusion. And as I wrote on Monday in the 3-2-1, I think if you put the ball in those kids' hands more often and, encourage them, empower them to be aggressive, to try and make something happen, I think it makes it easier. I think it makes life easier for Fulkerson, because right now, I mean, he's got to create pretty much all his own offense. They're dumping it. He's got to carve out space, and at 6'9", 205 pounds, that ain't easy in the SEC. Or he's got to catch it, 15 feet out on the floor and try to make a quick move to get by his guy. I mean, I think with the way that, Keon especially, but Jaden also was getting into the paint the other night, it creates all kinds of opportunities for other guys, whether it's, drive, draw, and dish, or bringing help defense and opening up past the easy offensive rebounds and putbacks. That was the best Tennessee has looked by far, I think, on Saturday. And Keon, I didn't see it coming. I'm not surprised Keon can play that way at all. I think he's hugely talented. But the way he flipped the switch as far as being assertive like he was, he'd taken more than 10 shots 3 times all year long. He takes 16 against Kentucky. And that doesn't even tell the whole story, because he got to the free throw line 11 times. So that's, 5 or 6 more shot attempts that were going up if he didn't get fouled. And I thought that really, for a guard to get 11 free throw attempts in a game, and it's not a result of the other team, fouling a bunch under 2 minutes left, that tells you a lot about how the kids play and where he's getting, how much pressure he's putting on the defense.
Yeah, I just think that, I said this when we taped the locker room Sunday night. I just think, my old Batman Robin, I think Fulkerson, I know he scored 27 at Rupp last year and closed it pretty strong. I just think he's way more comfortable as Robin than he is Batman.
I totally agree. And Des Oliver, I was going to say Des Oliver last Thursday when he met with the media, he didn't use the Batman and Robin term, but I thought he gave a pretty good breakdown of.
I've got licensing on that, Rob.
People want to point to, why can't Fulky be the man? He was the man last year, et cetera. And Coach Oliver, I thought made a nice point that, it's different being the man for a team that's at best on the NCAA bubble, probably an NIT team, as opposed to a team that was picked to win the SEC in the preseason, was a top 10 team, was, a team that at the start of January, people were talking about being a Final Four team. The pressures of those two situations are a lot different.
Rob, this is going to be crazy, and this, I'm just throwing a theory out there, I guess, a little bit. I'm sure there's no answer to this. It almost feels like that Keon Johnson got mad with about 5 minutes to go in the Ole Miss game.
Yeah, I agree.
Because he just dropped his head and started going to the rim. Now, he didn't make a free throw. Obviously, had a huge miss that would have sent that game into overtime. But it's almost like he just said, you know what, I'm just going to go. And let's just I'm just going to attack the rim. And then he carried that over with great success against Kentucky. Everybody's going to talk about the Kentucky game, but for me, it feels like the light may have switched for him, the last 4 or 5 minutes of the Ole Miss game.
I totally agree. You could see it. He like you said, he put his head down. He got in the lane, got to the line, got a huge offensive rebound that was just, sheer effort. It looked like a kid playing mad that didn't want to lose. And also, I think that there was some carryover from that. And also last week, he and Rick had just a one-on-one film session where the video guys made a bunch of cutouts, and Rick showed Keon dozens of times this year where he had the opportunity to put the ball on the floor and be aggressive, and he had turned that down. I think that made a big impression.
Well, we'll find out if this Tennessee basketball team can carry it over into this week, as the schedule change has Tennessee hosting Georgia on Wednesday night. Not the biggest Georgia team. A Georgia team that got off to a great start, and they were very slow coming out of the SEC gates, but they seem to have found themselves a little bit in league play. So we'll see how Tennessee can handle a Georgia team that seems to want to play as fast as Tennessee would like to play, Rob. They're going to play,
and I'm going to be interested to see how Tennessee handles it, because Georgia essentially plays 4 guards, don't have a starter bigger than 6'8", And those kind of lineups have given Tennessee problems. I mean, he certainly did against Alabama, Ole Miss, same way. And again, going back to Coach Oliver's media session last week, I mean, he kind of admitted that they have had problems with smaller, quicker teams. And even though Tennessee doesn't have great size, he feels like they maybe match up better against a Kentucky that is going to play two traditional bigs. But I personally, I mean, I like it when Tennessee goes small. I mean, I think if Rick doesn't try to force it and keep Pons and Fulkerson both on the floor together, and when he does go small, anything to get Springer and Johnson more minutes, I'm in favor of if I'm a Tennessee fan.
Well, certainly had their moments with that small lineup in Rupp Arena against, quote, a bigger team. So
we haven't mentioned it, but what really makes that small lineup feasible, whether you're playing with Fulkerson or Pons, whoever, is Josiah James. I mean,
if you're going to get 10 rebounds, then size is suddenly not as big of an issue.
Yeah, I mean, he needs a shout out for the work he got done, not just on the night, but in the last folks. We just killing Tennessee, and Josiah took him out. He didn't score in the last 8 minutes of the game, and he kind of is the grease that can make that engine go when you're playing with four guards. Big game from him.
Yep, we'll see how Tennessee.
I continue to say he's the glue. I mean, he's the most important player to Tennessee because, again, he might score you 19. He may get you 10 rebounds. He may get you 10 assists, and all of that plays.
Yeah, I mean,
he doesn't have to score the basketball to impact the game.
No, you're exactly right. He doesn't. He's got to rebound it on a consistent basis, and he can't turn the basketball over. When he gets in troubles, when he turns the basketball over. But yeah, I don't disagree with that. I mean, I think he is an important piece for Tennessee's puzzle because if you go look, when he's played well for 40 minutes, Tennessee's been good.
He's Tennessee's leading rebounder, which is great for him, but also tells you what Tennessee's biggest problems is. You got a 6'6" guard that is leading your team in rebound in SEC play.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They may have to play small lineup with him on Wednesday night just from a matchup standpoint. So we'll see how Coach Barnes and how the staff plays it, how the freshmen carry over after a huge game that they had in Rupp Arena, and particularly the second half where they erased a double-digit deficit to take care of the Wildcats on Saturday. It's Georgia on Wednesday. We'll have full coverage of that, continued coverage of recruiting, continued coverage of Josh Heupel's assembly of his first ever coaching staff at the University of Tennessee. That's going to do it for this edition of the Blue Water Climate Control Volquest.com podcast. For Rob Lewis and Austin Price, I'm Brent Hubbs. Thanks for joining us. Have a great Tuesday, everybody.